Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to JDB Selects. Magic Round done and dusted for another year. If you went along, let me know in the comments how it was. If you are new here too, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video and get involved in the comments. We're closing in on 1 million channel views and 8,000 subs, which is just amazing, so thank you very much for all the support. Speaking of support, I have just turned on channel memberships. I put a lot of my time into this, so any support that you can offer would be greatly appreciated. You'll get access to membership badges as well as exclusive supporter emojis to support your teams in the comments. Look, I completely understand if you do not want to pay the price, that's totally fine. My content will always stay free, but if you do want to support me and the work that I do, then feel free to hit that join button and get involved. Thank you very much. So now moving to last week's results, we managed to tip 5 out of 8 games. I was never going to pick the Dolphins or the Cowboys, but full credit to them, they played amazing. And then the Titans managed to get past the Eels, something that I said I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. And sure enough, they managed to make it happen on Sunday evening. Now, if you don't know by now, we are running a subscribers tipping comp this year. All the details to join are shown on screen, so get involved if you can. And still, Baby Papa Guns holding down the top position on the JDB Selects tipping comp ladder after 10 rounds with a score of 53. A lot of people hot on his heels, including myself. Good luck to everyone again this week. Hopefully we get some more perfect rounds. One person managed to do it last week. Now let's get stuck into my tips for round 11. Round 11 gets underway on Thursday night with the 6th place Melbourne Storm taking on the 1st place Brisbane Broncos at Amy Park in Melbourne. Starting first with the Storm, they struggled to get their attack firing, going down to the Rabbitohs 12 points to 28 in the Magic Round centrepiece. Despite having a better completion rate, less missed tackles and fewer errors, Melbourne lost the field position battle through the middle and couldn't find a way through South Sydney's staunch defence. It wasn't as if Melbourne were awful though, they were simply just outplayed in key moments by the likes of Mitchell and Walker. My biggest takeaway from that performance was that they lacked so much impact off the bench, especially with Welsh and Asafa Solomona only playing about 40 minutes each. It's another tough challenge for Melbourne's forwards this week as they take on one of the best packs in the comp currently. And now moving to the Broncos, despite a shaky start from both sides, the Broncs tore through a pathetic Sea Eagles outfit, winning 32 points to 6 in a completely one-sided affair. It was all the Broncos in the first half, scoring 20 unanswered points and completely dominating in possession and field position. And while it did balance out in the second stint, the Broncos' defence held strong, although they were never really threatened by Manly. After missing last week through suspension, Payne Haas played like he had a point to prove, running for over 200 metres, and despite some early handling errors from Reece Walsh, he was electric, setting up 2 tries and threatening every play with the ball in hand. This week's game against the Storm will be a real measuring stick to see how good the Broncos really are in 2023. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, Melbourne have won 12 straight against the Broncos, and they've also won 22 of their last 24 meetings, with the Broncos' last win in Melbourne coming all the way back in 2016. With that being said though, despite Melbourne's dominance, I am going to back the Broncos here by 1 to 12 points. I think the Broncos' forward pack should be too strong for Melbourne's, especially with their weak bench. Moving now to the first of the 2 Friday fixtures, we have the 15th placed Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the 11th placed NZ Warriors at a core. Starting first with the Dogs, they went down to the Raiders 30 points to 34 in a high-scoring game that saw 11 tries scored to kick off Magic Round with a bang. Canterbury were put on the back foot early and found themselves down by 16 points after 20 minutes before a perfectly executed 40-20 from Reid Marnie and 2 powerful tries from Jacob Preston got the Doggies back within 4 at the break. It was a very similar story in the second 40, with the Raiders looking like they were going to run away with it before a Matt Burton special and a penalty try got the Dogs close, but ultimately it was their ill discipline that cost them, conceding almost twice the amount of penalties. Couple that with the fact that not one Bulldogs forward could manage 100 run meters, and it's pretty surprising that the margin was only 4. And as for my Wars, they defended hard against the Panthers but lacked any real threat in attack, going down 6 points to 18. The Warriors matched the Panthers' intensity early before an injury to Edward Cossey saw players switching position and allowed the Panthers to pounce. Statistically, it was a fairly even contest, but losing 2 players to the sin bin in the second half meant the Warriors fatigued late and could never really threaten the Panthers. The Warriors did come up with some really ordinary kicks and poor 5th play options, something that they have struggled with at times this year, but considering the Panthers have beaten them by 30 plus points in their last 2 encounters, it does highlight that the Warriors' defense and resilience has improved in bucket loads under Webster. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Warriors have won 6 of the past 7 games against the Dogs and have already beaten them 16 points to 14 this season. Obviously I like the Warriors here, it's my team, but also I think they are playing a better brand of football than the Dogs at the moment. Both sides are dealing with a lot of injuries though, so that could even the playing field, but I am going to have to back my boys here, Warriors 1 to 12. And the final game on Friday has the 3rd placed Penrith Panthers taking on the 8th placed Sydney Roosters at Bluebet Stadium. The Panthers managed to bounce back after their shock loss to the Tigers the week prior, getting past the Warriors 18 points to 6. It was a physical contest with both sides opting to get down and dirty in the arm wrestle before injuries, positional changes, and sin bins for the Warriors gave the Panthers the openings they needed to close it out. Dylan Edwards and Brian To'o did most of the damage for the Panthers, both running for 250 metres and getting across the white stripe. As for the Roosters, the Chooks' indifferent start to the 2023 season continued with a massive 20-6 point upset loss to the North Queensland Cowboys on Sunday evening. The Roosters could only manage their first points of the night in the 78th minute, with the Cowboys' defence holding firm. The Roosters struggled to get field position in the first half, with their attack looking frantic, clunky and far too lateral. The Roosters made a whopping 18 errors, which wasn't helped by the torrential rain and hail to start the match, but that's still unacceptable at this level. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Panthers have won 7 of the past 8, that includes 6 straight, and they have won 5 on the bounce against the Roosters at Bluebet. Both sides are obviously not playing to their full potential this year, but I do like the Panthers at home here by 1 to 12 points. Should be a great close game. I think both sides have a lot left in the tank and will want to show that this week, so good luck to both sides, but Panthers 1 to 12 for me. And kicking things off on Super Saturday, we have the second placed South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the 17th placed West Tigers at a core. Starting first with the Bunnies, South Sydney made it 5 on the trot with a complete performance against the Storm, securing a 28 to 12 point win. The Bunnies' attack was at its scintillating best, with Latrell and Walker showing out on attack, but the most impressive part for me was their defence, which held strong for the full 80 minutes and frustrated Melbourne. AJ scored 2 tries in his 200th game, just missing out on a hat-trick in the dying minutes. The impact of both Burgess and Knight off the bench was unreal and meant that South Sydney were able to maintain a higher intensity than Melbourne. And if they weren't before, South Sydney are a definite threat for the premiership this year if they can maintain this level of quality and their key players can avoid injuries. And as for the Tigers, they managed to fight off a last-ditch effort from Mikhaili Ravalawa and the Dragons in the game's dying stages, hanging on just to win 18 points to 16, and in doing so secured the club's first back-to-back win in 379 days. Wests picked up where they left off against the Panthers, completing at 90% for the match, and being content in grinding their way to victory. Despite a couple of errors, Doreen Buller continues to shine for the Tigers, as did both Wakeham and Brooks, who clearly gained a ton of confidence from last week. Clemmer was also huge for the Tigers in the middle, running for almost 200 metres and making 26 tackles without a single miss. It's hard to believe I'm saying this, but the Tigers are starting to show signs of all the things they promised they'd be at the start of the season, and they'll no doubt start contesting the lower string sides. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, Souths have won 5 of the past 6 games against the Tigers. They've also won 4 of the past 5 games against the Tigers at a core stadium. So this one's fairly easy for me. Rabbits 13+. I think this might be a big reality check for the Tigers, and South Sydney are just far too good. So Rabbitohs 13+ for me. Moving now to the second game on Saturday, it's the 14th placed North Queensland Cowboys taking on the 16th placed St George Illawarra Dragons at Queensland Country Bank Stadium up in Townsville. Starting first with the Cowboys, they finally showed the defensive resolve that carried them deep into the finals last year, holding the Roosters scoreless for 78 minutes, securing a crucial 20-6 point win. The crucial win surely breathes new life into the Cowboys, with many, including myself, already having them written off. Chad Townsend, who was under an injury cloud already, was outstanding for the North Queensland Cowboys, scoring a try himself and setting up another. He also led the way in a high-intensity performance that saw the entire side play with a bit of passion and desire, something that had really been missing all season. No doubt Cowboys fans will be hoping that fire they showed on Sunday will continue for the rest of the season. And as for the Dragons, the drama continues for them and Anthony Griffin as they went down narrowly to the West Tigers, 16 points to 18. Close back and forward games and grandstand finishes have been the theme of their season, going down in 4 of their past 5 games by 2 points or less, and this was no different. Dragons captain Ben Hunt summed their performance up best, saying they were really dumb and not up to NRL standard. The removal of Lomax and Little didn't yield any more success, so it's now scary times for all players and fans, as Anthony Griffin will no doubt be forced to make more changes to try and get his side back on track. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Cowboys have won 4 of the past 5 games against the Dragons. The Cowboys have also won 3 of the past 4 games in Townsville. This could be a make or break game in the tips this week, but I am going to side with the North Queensland Cowboys here by 1 to 12 points. I think if they can play with that same passion and desire they played with against the Roosters on Sunday, they should be far too strong for a Dragons side that is absolutely all at sea. And the final game on Saturday is the 9th placed Canberra Raiders taking on the 13th placed Parramatta Eels at GIO Stadium in Canberra. Ricky and the Raiders extended their winning streak with a 34-30 point victory over the Bulldogs to kick off Magic Round. The Raiders started fast and flew out to a 16-point lead after just 20 minutes through brilliance from Jamal Fogarty, Jack Wyden and Xavier Savage before the Bulldogs managed to claw it back within a 4-point margin at halftime. The Raiders could have easily put the game to bed earlier if it wasn't for some shocking calls that went against them and then conceding a penalty try to give the Dogs a sniff. Big Red Corey Horsburgh was immense through the middle for the Raiders, and Matt Timbercore burnt the Dogs on the outside multiple times with pure speed and determination. If the Raiders can shore up their defence and get a fair rub of the greens with the referees, they could easily find themselves playing finals footy. And as for the Eels, Parramatta were bested by the Gold Coast in a super close game to close out Magic Round, going down 24 points to 26. The Eels scored 5 tries, that's just as many as the Titans, but poor goal kicking from both sides kept both sides in the game. After starting fast, the Eels were put under too much pressure with Clint Gutherson being sent off for holding back Cam Pereira, and the Titans capitalised, scoring 2 tries while he was on the sidelines. Although it wasn't a bad showing from the Eels, who completed at 93% in the first half, but a 7-3 penalty count in favour of the Titans never allowed them to build pressure. They will now find themselves without Mitchell Moses, who was knocked out late and will be subject to the mandatory 11-day stand-down period. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Eels have won 4 of the past 5 against the Raiders. However, they have only won 3 of their past 16 games against them in Canberra. Because of that, I am going to back the Raiders here by 1 to 12 points. I think the Raiders are full of confidence, they have a great record over the Eels at home, and also the loss of both Moses and RCG is too big for the Eels to overcome. And kicking off the action on Sunday, it's the 12th placed Newcastle Knights taking on the 7th placed Gold Coast Titans at McDonald Jones Stadium. Starting first with the Knights, Newcastle welcomed the bye last week after a terrible performance against the Eels the week prior, losing 43 points to 12. You'd think after a performance like that they'd make full use of the bye to prepare, but that isn't the case as a group of players jetted off to Bali on a holiday. Not sure who signed that one off. Looking at the game against the Eels, Ponga was extremely poor, missing 50% of his tackles. He's clearly still not at 100%. I'm interested to see if they start him again this week or bring in Gamble at 6. I love what I saw from Tyson Gamble when he was playing, and the Knights were winning too, which is a good sign, and Ponga can bring great impact off the bench. This is a make or break game for the Knights, who should be up for it coming off the bye. Adam Elliott is also expected to make his return from injury this week. And as for the Titans, they held on in an even contest against the Eels, scraping by 26 points to 24. Both sides scored 5 tries, but Tana Boyd was able to slot one more conversion than Mitchell Moses and ultimately proved to be the difference. Kieran Foran turned back the clock with 2 line breaks, a try assist and a try double, leading by example. It was another big performance by the Titans' middles and outside backs, rolling their sleeves up and making more big meters. The one thing that does worry me about the Titans is their bench, as they are vulnerable in the middle of games. Looking at the two sides head to head, it has been fairly even in recent times, but the Knights have won 4 of the past 5 games against the GC in Newey. This may be slightly controversial and the minority, but I am going to back the Knights here by 1 to 12 points. I think the bye and the massive turnaround is also a huge advantage in Newcastle's favour. Hopefully they make the right selection calls, because I think that is make or break, so it'll be interesting to see how the teams list shake out on Tuesday. But at this stage and in the video, of course, I'm going to back the Knights here 1 to 12. And the final game of round 11 has the 10th placed Manly Sea Eagles taking on the 8th placed Cronulla Sharks at 4 Pines Park. Starting first with Manly, the Sea Eagles were absolutely awful against the Broncos, going down 6 points to 32. In the first half alone, Manly could only manage 39% of possession. They were completing below 50% and conceded 20 unanswered points. As is often the case though, the possession and field position flipped in Manly's favour in the second 40, but they couldn't offer any threats in attack. DCE was the only player on the field that seemed to be giving 100% and was doing his best to inspire his side, while Turbo was still a little bit reserved after coming back from injury. Manly are also really lacking in impact off the bench, and they need to find a way to get the ball out to both Saab and Kohler in space so they can utilise their power and speed. And as for the Sharks, Cronulla's middles were out enthused and in turn dominated by the Dolphins in the inaugural Battle of the Seas, going down 36 points to 16. The Sharks only enjoyed 38% of possession in the first 40 off the back of poor handling in defence, quickly finding themselves down by 30 points after just 30 minutes before 2 quick tries just before the break gave the Sharks a sniff. Despite going to the break with a bit of momentum, the Sharks struggled to gain any advantage through the middle and were never a chance of running the Finns down. Talakai was the standout for the Sharks. He backed up his performance from the week prior, running for almost 250 metres and setting up 2 of Cronulla's 3 tries. It's hard to say where it went wrong for the Sharks, especially as they have looked so good in recent weeks. Fingers crossed there's not a hint of complacency or overconfidence in their attack creeping in. Looking at the two sides head to head, it has been fairly even in recent times, but Brookie hasn't been a happy hunting ground for the Sharks. They've lost 9 of their past 11 games at the ground. However, I am still going to back them to bounce back here, so I am going to take the Sharks 1-12. I think last week's a big wake-up call for Cronulla, who obviously have looked so dangerous up until that point, and Manly, don't know about Manly right now, so Sharks 1-12 for me. So in summary, I am taking the Broncos, Warriors and Panthers by 1-12 points, the Bunnies 13+, the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Knights and the Sharks 1-12. There you go, there you have it. Those are my tips for round 11 of the 2023 NRL season. Thanks as always for watching. Please get involved in the comments. Let me know who you're tipping. Share with your friends and good luck with your tips.